I am very excited to get this thing started, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, we have a very interesting topic, which is one of the most foundational pieces of being a motor carrier. Right before we get into this, though, I did want to just give a quick shout out. Valentine's Day is coming up. And, I just want to acknowledge my wife, Angel. Very, very proud of you. Thank you so much for your support. You have supported me like none other during this process of me transitioning from corporate America to now being a business owner, aspiring entrepreneur. Even with this Clubhouse situation, I would have not known about it had you not invited me. I know that you got a very, very big opportunity tonight. And I just, I pray that everything goes well. You sing your heart out. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my wife because she just does so much for me. But on that note, Dee, hey now, welcome to the stage. How you doing tonight?
Good. I'm doing good. Congrats to your wife. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm excited. Can't wait to hear the stories after tonight. But all right. So look, without further ado, Dee, can you please introduce yourself for the folks who have not met you just yet?
Yes. So my name is Dee. A little bit of backstory. I graduated from Clark Atlanta University.
Hey.
I have a bachelor's in psychology. Initially wanted to be a social worker and then took a break from school to figure out what my passion was. So I did what adults do and I got a job. The first job that I was offered was in insurance. I didn't really love it, didn't really hate it, but I still quite wasn't sure what I actually wanted to do with my life. So I looked around again and I came across Marquee. Marquee Insurance Group is a retail insurance agency. So basically, we're insurance brokers. So we have about 50 different insurance companies that we work with, and we work to find the best quote along with the best financing option for carriers. And then we kind of act as a customer service department, so to say, until the policy renews the next year. So at Marquee, they only deal with trucks, only commercial auto. So kind of grew to love the industry and love helping truckers. I've been an account manager. I created our claims department and I worked as the claims department manager up until I got this promotion as head of partnerships. My team jokes around that I single-handedly filed over 6,000 claims and facilitated 6,000 claims by myself. So I've pretty much seen a lot, good, bad, and ugly.
Okay. Hey, man, thanks for that introduction. Congratulations on the success. You are definitely one of those very, very essential people within that organization building the claims department, and congratulations on now being head of partnerships. I'm not sure how you're going to leverage that role, but I know you're going to use it, to the best of your ability. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, ma'am. No doubt. So, look, first things first. All right. So, folks who are listening, I just want, you to know that the beginning is going to be a little bit more for the folks who are trying to get into trucking. And then we're going to get into more of the fine-tuned details about certain, the nuanced parts of insurance. So, Dee, if you could, what should a carrier who's interested in getting their MC first be considering or thinking about when, filing, when trying to get insurance? What are the first things they should be thinking about?
So the first thing you should think about is actually getting your authority and applying for your authority. There is a 21 to 25 day waiting period before it becomes active. So before you even think about getting insurance, you want to make sure you just apply first. Because if you start your insurance prior to starting that process, you'll basically be paying for something you can't use. Mm-hmm. But once that you kind of start that process, you can start your insurance by the FMCSA is going to require $750,000 of auto liability. Auto haulers, they're going to want $1 million, and if you're doing hazmat, they're going to want to see either $1 million or $5 million, depending on what you're actually hauling. Once you bind insurance, It's usually going to take about 4 to 5 business days until your insurance shows on the FMCSA's website. So just account for that as well. Brokers are going to want to see at least $1 million in auto liability, which is damages done to others. Cargo, they're going to want to see about $100,000, usually about $1,000 deductible, and that's going to cover specifically the cargo.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And, we did get this question on social media right before this bad boy started, but why is insurance so expensive? Like what's the deal?
Okay. So I can go a little in depth, but a lot of people think that your price is kind of contingent on the big three, which is usually the authority age, if you have claims, or if you have bad safety scores. But it's actually a lot that goes into the pricing of it. A lot of people don't know that your location has a lot to do with it, specifically your garaging address. Things like population density, crime rates, state laws, different types of terrain, different types of weather. All of that is going to make a big difference in your pricing. So say, for example, you have Atlanta, that's kind of like a really large population. It's heavy traffic. It's kind of like the hub of the South. So you're getting a lot of people coming in and out the city, and it's mostly a metro area. So that's going to be more expensive than, say, like in Iowa, where no one really lives there. They don't have traffic. It's really flat. It's a bunch of small towns, so you're not concerned about theft, and the weather is kind of like balanced. So you want to make sure that when you have your garaging address, or you're even starting a trucking company, take into account if you're going to be in a rural area versus a metro area, because the prices are going to differ pretty high. And also state laws differ a lot. So you have Florida, who's like a no-fault state. Florida is going to be really expensive because either way, if you get into any accident, whether you caused it or not, your insurance company is going to have to come out of pocket. So places like that, you're going to get like really high rates. Another thing a lot of people don't know is that credit plays a factor in it. They want to know how likely you are to stay active and that you can actually pay your bill, and how good you are with money and keeping your business running. Another thing is age of trucks. If you have a truck that's over 12 years old, it's more likely to malfunction. You don't want your brakes going out on a ramp. You saw how that kind of goes. And then also with newer trucks, the value is going to be really high, so you're going to be paying a lot more in physical damage. Things like driver age and history plays a part. If you have drivers that are really young, less than 2 years of experience and under the age of 21, they're going to cost you more, as well as drivers that are really, safe to say this, but kind of older, 65 plus, they're going to cost you more as well. And then they take into account what is actually on those drivers' NVRs. Okay. And then the owner of the business, a lot of people don't know that. If you have an owner that does not have a CDL, a lot of times they'll add fees due to that as well, because if something were to happen to the truck, or if you lose the driver, the owner really can't do anything about it until they get another driver.
Okay, let me ask about that specifically, because there are a lot of box trucks out here which do not require CDL drivers most times. Does that come into play there, or is that more so if we're talking about a semi-truck operation that requires a CDL?
So this is going to be more for semi-trucks, but a lot of the factors do still take into account, like the truck age, driver age, credit history, and what type of city you're in. So if you have a Midwest box truck that's just bringing around corn, they're not going to really cost as much as a box truck in Atlanta making multiple stops, being used for shorter distances but longer periods of time.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you did kind of mention that NVR, things that are actually predicated on the individual driver. What type of impacts can that NVR have? Go into that a little bit more, please.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has Progressive, but you'll usually see it there because they charge per driver. Clean NVR, for example, with Progressive would be anywhere from like $0 to $500. A driver with a terrible NVR could possibly cost you $20,000 to add. Because basically with Progressive, they're going to charge per violation. And when you have drivers with violations, certain insurance companies won't even insure them. You'll reach out to your agent saying, I want to add this driver. They're going to flat out tell you, no, you can't add the driver. A lot of times they'll send you a driver exclusion, basically threatening you that if you do let this driver drive your truck, they're not going to cover them. So you always want to have drivers at least with 2 years of experience. For the tractor trailers, for box trucks, you don't need as much experience. And then just overall clean driving records for everyone. They are professional drivers, so they do take those things into account. You don't want a doctor with a bunch of violations. We don't want drivers with a bunch of violations either, because the general public is what they're mostly concerned about.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I never thought about it like that. A doctor with several pending malpractice cases.
Right. You don't want them in a hospital, and we don't want bad drivers on the road. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for putting it like that. And with those drivers, let's just say, where was I going with that? It was something good. It was something real juicy. With, let's just say that we're submitting a batch of drivers, like 5 or 6 drivers. I've kind of heard some insurance people, agents say that if they're submitting a lot of drivers and they're just looking to see which ones have, the best impact on their actual quote, that they just won't quote all of those drivers. Does that have any impact with you guys? Like if somebody's trying to do that, kind of see who's going to be the best one to go with based on, what they do to the actual quote?
Yes. So our account managers are really diligent about it. A lot of account managers are at other insurance agencies as well. They'll pre-review that NVR to make sure the driver's not too bad. Because if we do send over a driver that does have DUIs or does have speeding violations over 20, a lot of insurance companies, because you even thought about adding this driver or hiring this driver, they could send you a cancellation for increase in risk. And then you also don't want to add a bunch of drivers, because driver turnover isn't a good sign with insurance companies. So you don't want to send over a whole bunch at one time. You kind of just want to pick the 1 or 2 that you're most interested in and has the best chance of actually being added to the policy.
Okay. So what does, so now we got the considerations, all the things that potential carrier needs to, have in the forefront of their mind when they're submitting for their quote request. Now, when it comes down to it, what is the main incentive to pay for the insurance premium outright versus doing it monthly? What type of benefits come there?
Okay, so an unknown fact is that most people who have policies and you're making installments, you're not paying that to the insurance company. You're paying that to a finance company. A lot of people don't even notice because they'll call their agent and their agent will log into the portal and make the payment for them. But you're not paying the agent, nor are you paying the insurance company directly. When you immediately bind a policy and you put that down payment down, your agent will send that over. But along with that, your finance company is going to send over the remaining balance of your full premium to the insurance company. And that allows you to make usually 10 to 11 payments directly to the finance company. With that being said, they're not going to do it for free. There usually is an APR in there or financing fees or whatever they want to call it. And when you do have the ability to have a direct bill policy, a lot of times you are able to avoid those fees and contracts and things like that. Another thing with direct bill policy is you can kind of add and remove things directly from the insurance company. So you're not having to deal with like prolonged periods of having to get your money back. A lot of people who remove drivers or trucks and drivers will have to pretty much wait 30 to 90 days in order for that money to be credited to their account versus it being, credited same day on that direct bill policy.
Okay. All right. Yeah, appreciate that. And I wanted to come back to that probably a little bit later just to talk about it more. Yeah, but all right. So we're talking about the big 3. All right. We're talking about we're talking about cargo. We're talking about general liability, and we're talking about automobile. What exactly are each one of those bad boys taken care of? If we can kind of have an analogy that kind of sums them up real quick.
Okay. So the big three is going to start with that $1 million policy. That's going to be the auto liability. Auto liability is any damage to another person. So that's going to be anytime you hit a guardrail or, back into someone's car or bump someone on the freeway, or even you have a hazmat spill on the highway, they have to clean it up. And then sometimes in smaller cities, they don't have resources readily available. So every now and then, like if your truck were to catch on fire, they would send the trucking company the bill. Your auto liability would take care of that bill.
Mm.
The cargo is going to be specifically for cargo. They're not going to touch anything else other than cargo. Like you can have a towing and storage bill that ropes in the cargo. They're going to pay their portion and they're going to leave it alone. So the cargo is going to be any damages explicitly done to the cargo or done by the cargo. So if they have to clean up anything on the side of the road, or if you have ants or something in the back of your trailer when you deliver it, or it's late, or you get into an accident and it gets destroyed, this policy would take into effect there. And another one that a lot of people don't talk about, and which is one of the highly requested policies, is going to be physical damage. Physical damage is going to be damages to your listed vehicles, so your actual units. A lot of people think that auto liability takes care of everything. They like to call it full coverage. There's nothing in insurance that's full coverage. They never cover anything fully. So you want to make sure that you're actually reading your policies, because it covers exactly what it says. Your auto liability is going to cover others. It's not going to cover your vehicles. Your cargo is going to cover the cargo. It's not going to cover your vehicles. So you want to make sure that you actually have that physical damage available in case something actually happens. And that's due to comprehensive or collision instances. So tornadoes, riots, hurricanes, derailment, which is like if you go off the side of the road, anytime you collide with anything, situations like that. One thing that physical damage isn't going to cover that a lot of people thinks it covers is mechanical breakdown or neglect of your vehicle. If you just break down on the side of the road, they're not going to cover that. If your engine goes out, they're not going to cover that. Or, for whatever reason, you just don't change your tires or whatever and it blows out on the side of the road, they're not going to take care of that either. Then you have general liability, which is a hot topic. A lot of people are getting that now. That covers damages to your rented premises and the things on it. So a lot of people have general liability and they think it covers things. But if you, for example, your garaging address is your actual home or is an apartment or something like that, your general liability isn't really covering anything. If you have a facility and someone decides to destroy a really expensive desk on it, you can file that policy. Or someone's out on the yard and they twist their ankle, you can file that policy. Pretty much anything like that, as long as it has to do with the actual garaging address. Some people even use it when they store goods within a facility. So if something gets stolen, they'll file a general liability policy, but you have to make sure that that's actually endorsed on it.
Gotcha. Okay. And all right, so I appreciate you going through that rundown. I wanted to hop in, but I didn't want to interrupt. All right, what's comprehensive mean? You said not, yes. Talk about comprehensive.
So comprehensive is anything that you can't control. So if you have like a storm, like a tornado, hurricane, anything that isn't caused by another human being or any type of like accident situation. So anything that can happen. So like hail damage, stuff like that, that is usually like a comprehensive damage. The collision on the other side would be like if a rock hits your windshield, or if you bump into another car, or if you hit the McDonald's sign, who knows, like whenever you cause an accident. Okay.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But I don't know if most people, I actually have to go through my clients, to see about that physical damage being explicitly listed on their coverage. Because
a lot of people think it's like personal auto where because you have it, it's full coverage, and it's not. I can't tell you how many people go to file claims and only the other person is covered and not the actual truck and trailer. It does tend to make people go out of business. Another good thing that's on that physical damage policy is towing and storage. Towing and storage is really big in trucking. I've seen towing and storage bills that exceed $100,000. And then another thing with towing and storage is they take everything. So they take the cargo as well. So until you pay them for towing your vehicle, you can't have your cargo back. So that can cause cargo claims. So you want to make sure that you do have towing and storage, which is within that physical damage policy, and that you have like a substantial limit to it. Some policies are going to be unlimited, like the Progressives, the Berkshires, the Lancers. Those are going to be unlimited. If you have Lloyd's of London, you may want to check it because it's either 5,000 or 10,000. So if you have to raise it, you may want to raise it. If you want to leave it how it is, that's totally up to you. But be prepared that if it does exceed that limit, the insurance company is not going to pay for it.
Okay. Yeah, this is already very, very eye-opening. Thank you so much. I can hear it in your voice. Like you have these answers because you've done this. Like
Yes.
over 6,000 claims yourself, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So everything that can possibly, not everything, because, you know, a lot of things happen, but most things that can happen in a truck, I've heard. I've heard people become very hurt when they realize that their business is in jeopardy because they thought full coverage existed. So just education is key. Anybody can call me anytime. I will give you everything I know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I've already taken you up on that call at least once. I think I got two more. Okay. Two more.
Let me know.
All right. All right. So now this carrier that we've been talking about, they apply for their MC, then they went to apply for their insurance. They got both. So their MC is active and now they're moving freight. Okay. When they signed up, they said, you know what? I'm going to keep this very, very general. I'm moving general freight. Okay. That's what I'm moving. That's what I want to put on my insurance. What does general freight really mean? Like, what is general freight?
General freight is just an easy way for producers to list paper and plastic goods. A lot of times you'll see on policies it says paper and plastic goods. Most insurance companies only let you list 4 at a time. So if you have like a bunch and they want to put paper and plastic, they'll just label it general freight, because basically what it does is they'll list general freight, and then on your policy under general freight, it'll be 50 billion exclusions of things that you cannot haul, basically making it everything except paper and plastic goods. So a lot of people see general freight and they think, I can carry anything. You can't actually carry anything. You do have to kind of look back at your policy, assume that it's paper and plastic. If you want to look at other things and make sure the exclusion isn't there, that's totally fine. If you want to call your agent, a lot of times they answer the phone. They can usually tell you fairly quickly. If you can haul things, I know a lot of freight brokers typically call and say, hey, is beer covered? Is whatever covered? Your agent will tell you, and that's totally okay if you have to do that. But if you do not see the commodity on your commodities list, you are not covered for that commodity.
Okay. And with that, let's just keep it with the beer. I know that you can get same day permits to haul beer, but what about to get like just the coverage for it in the first place? Not just a permit to be legally okay, but how can you get it covered?
Yeah, so it's just a phone call. Some commodities that you add are going to cost depending on how high risk it is. Some are going to be free. Beer is one that typically does cost depending on what your policy is. Alcohol is one of those things. And then you also want to be very granular when you categorize these things because, like, for example, beer and alcohol are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you list beer and you get into an accident with alcohol, they're going to deny the claim. So you want to get super, super granular. If you have to ask, I always say pass the risk. Once you call your agent and you say, can I haul beer? And they say, yes, it is their problem if you get into trouble with beer. So you always want to make sure that you're checking with someone.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I mean, and just like you just said, some of these individual items to be added onto your policy come with a price tag, but others do not. Do you have like a list of all the things that could be potentially added that wouldn't cost somebody anything to have them added?
Yeah, so everybody's policy is completely different, but just generalizations that I see. Clothing is one of those things, or garments they'll list it as. It's usually free. If you're a construction hauler, like lumber, steel, those types of things are usually free.
But you're saying, and not to cut you off, but you're saying that these things have to be explicitly listed on the policy prior to anything adverse happening for it to be covered.
Yes, just to be safe. You'll have some adjusters that just don't care as long as it's not like a high risk or it specifically says it's excluded. They'll let it slide. But I've had some people in the past, they do it one time, get away with it, and then do it again. And then the second adjuster, who's a totally different person, denies it because it's not specifically listed. And we kind of can't do anything about that because it's not actually written on the policy. So you always want to list it, especially because like once you bind the policy, you can add a bunch of things to it. You can have 8 or 9 commodities and be perfectly fine.
Okay. So one of those commodities, so look, is there anything specifically necessary for U.S. mail? Like what would you have to do if you're trying to, get some of that mail going?
Mail. Mail. I've been scarred by mail at this point. Mail is one of those things where you have to be registered, so to say, with the FMCSA to actually haul it. Mail, they never know what's actually in it. So they don't know if it's exceeding your actual limits or if it's just paper. Like we have no idea if it's one of those, if it's beer in an envelope, like we have no idea how to kind of track that. So mostly if you don't see mail listed, it's usually never kind of listed unless you're specifically looking to contract mail. And then a lot of times they'll tell you that up front. Some brokers won't tell you that. I had one carrier he believed he was hauling leaflets, but it came from the U.S. Postal Service, and it was in those kind of like U.S. bins. So when the pictures were sent to the adjuster said it was mail. You're not kind of rated to be carrying mail. He was a for-hire carrier. So he ended up getting denied. He ended up losing his business. It was kind of a crazy thing. A weird thing about mail, if you want to do your Googles, there's a section 387 point, I think it's like 3 with the FMCSA, which basically kind of states that mail is being like intermingled between inter and intrastate. So it's not kind of rated as a for-hire thing. And they usually interpret it to be passenger and motor property carrier, not a for-hire carrier. So that's what I mean why you have to be like listed with the FMCSA to be hauling it in order to get insurance for it, in order to be covered for it.
Oh, wow, man, that's very, very specific, very granular. Wow.
Yeah, I had to explain it to him because I didn't understand either. I was like, it's paper. You have paper listed. Shouldn't be a big deal, but it was a huge deal.
Oh, wow, man. Sorry for that guy. It was one of those lessons that I feel like is going to stick with you. Definitely. You're going to be able to teach people about mail for the rest of your life.
Every time someone says mail, I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing that.
Right. Okay, so look, back in my days of being a dispatcher for a corporation, I was pushing about 13 of those semis, and oftentimes I would see on the load board, a dry van load that was moving windshields. What does somebody have to have on their insurance to move windshields? Is that covered?
Car parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Car
it's
parts.
classified as car parts.
Okay. There are a lot of car parts that are being moved. Does that come with the price tag?
Yes, it does come with a price tag, especially because it is glass. I wouldn't be able to quote off the top of my head, but if I had to guess, it wouldn't be more than $500.
Okay, for the entire year?
Yes, for the entire year. And then they'll prorate it to where you are in the year. So if it's $500 for the whole year and you're halfway through, you only pay $250.
Okay, good. One thing that I did notice, though, recently going through and getting a quote for cargo, coverage and all these kind of good things with Progressive is, although being a dispatcher, owning Atlanta Dispatch, I have seen so many people get denied for loads because they have $100,000 in cargo, but the broker requires $250,000. You know, when I actually saw the difference in the quote, it wasn't that much.
No.
It was not that much. And, you know, I just invite all of the carriers who have ever been in that situation just ask for a requote, just to see what having these small differences can do. You know, I don't think it's going to be as much as you think. And you might be able to save yourself a lot of headache on the back end by just solidifying, you know, tightening up your insurance situation up front. So,
yeah, a lot of people just when they call, they say, I want to get running, or just give me what I need to get running. So they give you the bare minimum. They give you the $1 million with $100,000, no PD. But it's usually not that big of a difference in the actual pricing, especially like when people do call in like midterm. By the time you're like halfway through, it's only like half that price anyways. And it makes a ton of a difference. And another thing, if you're working with a bigger broker, you can ask for a shield load, which is basically where, say you have $100,000 and you need 200, they'll charge you a day's price for the extra 100,000. I know a couple of brokers that do that, but that's always an option as well.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Hold on. I actually have them open in my tabs. Let me see where they are. I'm one of those folks. I have at least 60 tabs open on my phone and on my computer, you know, because I said I'm going to come back to this. I know I am. Dang, where are these folks? Did I already pass them? There is an organization that does exactly what you just said. They offer those those coverages in between times if you just want to get it real quick. Dang, I forgot their name. And would you believe that I did go ahead and close them out? Dang.
Oh, no.
Right. This is a first. Nope, I was joking. Load Shore is the company I'm talking about. Yeah, so I think that's very interesting, guys, if you're listening. You know, sometimes you might want to take that load that you don't currently have the coverage for. So make sure you just do a quick Google search of, you know, if that's an opportunity for you to add some, you know, single load coverage, because it is an option.
And it's usually like dollars. I used to do them or input them for NTG, and like 100,000 would be like $7.
Yeah, it's very, very small cost, and it's more so you think of it, you make it up to be a bigger thing in your mind than what it actually will be. So look, let me ask this question: is there a such thing as a standard cargo policy? You kind of touched on this already.
No, they are all completely different. Like, I can have one with American Infidelity, you can have one, and they will be completely opposite. A lot of times they are dependent on where you live as well, because they're like really big about theft. And another thing about like theft is we're kind of talking about like cities and high-risk cities. Check your policy to make sure you don't have a target cities exclusion. A target cities exclusion basically excludes you within 50 miles of the 5 target cities, which is usually like Chicago, LA, Newark, Miami, and New York City. I think it's 5. But if you're within 50 miles of those cities, pretty much every cargo claim you have is probably going to get denied because that exclusion is there.
Dang, that's a thing?
Yes, that's a thing.
What?
That is a thing. And you can control F through your policy, target cities. It's usually written the same way in every policy. And it'll take you right to it if you have it. Just kind of be aware of it. But the cargo policies are one of in insurance, they say it's the best written policy for the insurance company. For agents and carriers, it's kind of a headache because they're exclusively written, and for every coverage, there's a denial for a specific reason that counteracts the coverage. So you want to make sure that you're always in compliance with that. And just make sure that you read it, mostly the exclusions page. You can control F exclusions throughout it, and then it'll give you like a list of everything that you're not supposed to do, and that'll usually save a lot of headache.
Okay. So one of the biggest benefits of going through an insurance agency is that they have educated young men and women just like yourself that can, easily explain this to carriers. Is that the case?
Yes. So the best part about the agency is that you do have that extra added customer service. The person that is on your side, we don't work for the insurance companies. That's a big misconception. A lot of times we don't even like them. So we're usually here. We're pretty much always here outside of the actual initial binding policy where we're giving them the business to support you. That's our only purpose after you actually bind with us. So you can call your agent. A lot of times it'll be like your sales agent and your account manager like in one space, and they'll be able to speak to you. With Marquee, we're a little bit bigger. So we have about, I want to say it's like 20 account managers where they're just on the phone answering calls all day. And then also if you have an agent with a claims department, they're usually really knowledgeable about these things, about the specific policies and specific coverages. So if you call them as well and I get hypotheticals all day, mostly people who have done things that kind of don't want to tell me that they've done them. So they'll answer those questions as well. Like hypothetically, if I backed into this, but I paid them out of pocket, am I okay? Like those types of situations. So don't be afraid to call your agent. That's what they're there for. They'll help you. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that you said that. I mean, you got to be able to confide in some folks, and this, you probably want to make friends with your insurance agent just so they can really give you the lowdown on whatever you're going through and the best ways to make it through whatever you're going through.
We have some sales guys that they'll be on their phone and then like someone's explaining to them and they're like, oh, wait, call me on my cell phone. And then they'll call them on an unrecorded line. They're definitely here for you, especially a sales guy, because they're not really tied to anything outside of the actual binding period. So like they're really knowledgeable as well. So lean on them. You trusted them in the binding process. You might as well trust them throughout the policy as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So this next thing is kind of like one of those sleepers. It's not required everywhere. It's by the individual state that you are, operating out of, or I guess your company is based out of. But workers' compensation, some people require, like I said, some states require it, some brokers require it. I guess it just depends on the type of work. But what is workers' compensation and what does it take care of?
So workers' compensation actually takes care of your drivers. So if they get hurt on the job, injured in any way, it'll pretty much, give them benefits depending on what type of policy you have and the coverages you have. I usually tell people to get workers' compensation from your state pool, which is cheaper than what a lot of agents usually are able to quote. Your agent won't mind a lot of times because they do know that it's cheaper. So if you Google workers' compensation in your state, it'll give you a state pool, and then you can kind of go from there. If you're in one of those states where it's required, your agent probably put it in your policy already. You probably just haven't realized that it's there. So just check your certificate. It should be either at the bottom where you see like all of your trucks listed, or under where your auto liability provider is. So just check there if you're not sure if you have it or not. But workers' compensation it's a really cool thing to have, even if you're not required to have it. It's very inexpensive. It helps the drivers out a ton. And then it also has like a sister coverage, which is personal injury and protection. That's something that's a little bit more comprehensive. So like if they lose their life, if they have like a survivor, it'll pass money on to them. It covers more things without, physical injury having to be proven. So if you want to look into personal injury and protection, that'll be a good thing for drivers as well. But also if you're working with the UIIA, it is a requirement to have workers' comp. So if you're into that, you can pretty much look at that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. But it makes sense. I was going to ask about the UIIA later, but do you want to just talk about that a little bit more and what's the logic behind requiring it?
So the logic is you have drivers going onto their property, and they own the facility and they have general liability as well. So it's just kind of an extra barrier and layer of protection. So if your driver gets hurt on their property, you'll go through your actual workers' comp before you actually go through their general liability policy. So they require you to have it just in case, but they require you to have like a ton of different coverages.
Okay, that makes sense. And so I wanted to bring that up specifically because I know a lot of carriers that might have gotten a dedicated route and their daily situation is touch freight, where their driver has to either load or unload, a lot of commodities from that trailer. So I wanted to bring that up just because, I'm not even old, but I have to stretch before I do things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm trying to avoid injury, I have to really be, cautious, make sure that I'm prepared. And, I notice if I don't when I'm not as precautious as I know I should be, things just happen. So, I'll skip out going to the gym for a month if I feel like I strained something. You know what I mean? So it's just like, these drivers who might not be in a spot to even be as mindful of that. You definitely have to make sure they're covered when they're doing such, it's very burdensome work, especially those white glove services, where you got to take something inside the house, you have to install it, you have to, if it's too large, you got to take off the door frame, all these type of things have to happen just like on the regular. So, that workers' compensation might be worth it in the long run. So I'm very happy that you spoke about that state pool being, a little bit more economical.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem. And also, if there are state like health insurance for drivers as well. I know Georgia has it. I'm not sure what other state has it. Georgia has it through the GMTA. But if you're looking for health insurance for your drivers, that's also another kind of ad to bring people on. It usually costs like $300 a month or something like that for like one driver, which is couple bucks a month. So if you're looking for something like that, that does exist as well. Okay. You don't have to work for Swift to have insurance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and truth be told, y'all, I do have a agent that kind of, I got my own insurance, my own personal health and dental for myself and my wife. I got it through an individual agent. So if anybody needs anybody, I do have somebody that was she was referred to me and now I'm using her and I'm happy with the service. So I'll refer to anybody else if you guys need somebody. So just reach out to me on that one. But look, all right. So now in our story about the little carrier that could, all right, we've applied, we've gotten it, we're operating, and now we're doing all right. We're able to predict our income. We're starting to think about how can we scale, how can we grow, and these truck prices are very pricey. So we say maybe we don't want to go out and buy our own truck. But there's an owner operator right there that is looking to lease on to our MC number. Look, what does it mean to lease on to a motor carrier? Could you explain that?
Yes. So leasing on to a motor carrier is basically using their MC number to operate. Owner operators are their own kind of entity. They're kind of like, what word am I looking for? Like freelance workers, for the most part. But owner operators, they don't kind of work as employee drivers would. They could be a great asset to a company, but they can also be a big hindrance as well. So owner operators aren't attached to the business at all. They can leave whenever they feel like it. If you do add owner operators, I would just make sure that you trust those owner operators, because the owner operator can leave, but their claims do not, and their terrible safety scores do not. And a lot of times people don't actually vet owner operators. They don't call references. They don't look around. They don't actually even look at their NVR to even know if the driver is a good driver or not. They just wait until it's renewal time and they're looking at their safety scores and they're in the yellow and the red and they're wondering what happened.
Great points. Great points. Thank you for sharing those. And when it comes down to it, like so is it the same insurance that you would need for your own trucks, or like do you have to have something specifically for somebody that's leasing on?
No, so as far as insurance, they look like an employee driver. So you get the driver's information, you get their truck VIN, you get their trailer information if you want. And then you add it to the policy as though you would add a truck that you've purchased or a driver that you've hired. The only difference is some people tend to use bobtail policies, which is an NTL with a PD policy for owner operators. And what that typically does is when that driver is not contracted under a load, the damage that vehicle may do to others is the responsibility of that NTL policy and that specific owner operator. Same thing with their physical damage. Instead of them being listed on your physical damage, if you have other trucks, they're listed on their own physical damage. So if they get into a claim, or if they claim $50,000 of losses on the truck that they damaged, that's going to reflect on their lost runs versus your lost runs. If you have them on your physical damage, I've gotten this question before. If they're on that policy, I can't stop them from making a claim. You may not want to, but if the truck's listed and the driver's listed, I can't tell them no. So you want to make sure that you have kind of like a hold on your owner operators, because you kind of can't predict what they're going to do. And a lot of times they don't like to report claims as well. So we'll get certain situations where that driver may have gotten into an accident, didn't tell the owner about it. We'll get a call from the insurance company. The insurance company is like, hey, this is an unreported loss. What's going on here? I only have a VIN number and a date. We call the owner. The owner's like, I don't know. I was in an accident. The insurance company actually gets proof that this truck was in the accident, and then they want to cancel that trucking company for increase in risk and because they lied about a claim.
Lied or were
had no idea about
had no idea. Wow.
But to them it's a lie because you didn't report it.
Right. Or it's just negligent, so we don't want you up there anyway. Okay.
Right.
So how does that work out with saying, you know what, I want me as a business owner, as the motor carrier, I want my own trucks to have physical damage, but this person that I'm going to allow to lease on, nah, don't add that. You can actually exclude that?
Yes. So you can add them to your auto liability and your cargo so they can work under your MC. You can only... So all trucks owned and operated by your company have to be listed under that auto liability. So you don't have a choice but to put them on that one. Cargo, same thing. You're going to have brokers calling your agent like, hey, is this truck listed? Obviously, you want that truck listed on the cargo so they actually have coverage for the cargo. Physical damage, that's up to listed vehicles. It's not required. No one's going to make you. That person has every right to buy their own physical damage. So definitely get that. And just when they're not contracted, that NTL, the other half of that bobtail, would just be an extra layer of insurance for them to separate them from your actual company when they're not working specifically for you. Because they do have a tendency to work for more than one company as well.
Okay. So you kind of mentioned something that makes me want to kind of go a little bit further into the conversation, which is, all right, there's a truck that has bobtail insurance that is basically covering that truck when they are not on a load. Okay. So that's kind of common for somebody that's an owner operator that is leasing on to somebody else. And, I know that people who have power only units, they only have the semi, they don't have the trailer, it's normal for them to have trailer interchange coverage because, you got to protect that unit that you might be attaching to that you do not own. Also, there are, things that are, with that UIIA one, in order for you to, do the port work, those are things that are common. Like you have to have those things, or they're more common add-ons if that's the type of work that you're doing. Is there anything that you got to have if you're doing a hot shot, or you have a flatbed or RGN, or those vacuum trailers? Are there any additional coverages that are kind of like required? And I'm framing this question kind of strictly just because, reefers, you got to have the reefer breakdown coverage.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything else that, those other equipment types have to have?
Not specifically equipment types. For hot shots, you'll have an actual hot shot policy. But it still reads the same: auto liability, cargo, physical damage. So those aren't specific. Reefer is one where you actually have to have reefer breakdown. But those other types is pretty much just liability. You add your trailer. They may rate the business differently depending on if you have like a flatbed or an auto hauler. But the coverage is still called the same thing.
Okay. Like, can you think of any other equipment types that do have those standard things like a reefer breakdown coverage would? I mean, you might not. I'm just asking because I haven't heard of anything.
Off the top of my head, reefer breakdown is the main one because you have a reefer, and then obviously you don't want it to break down. A lot of people think that the reefer breakdown covers the actual like malfunction of the reefer. It does not. It's just a coverage that removes an exclusion on your cargo policy that basically says if there is a temp change, then they automatically deny the claim. In this case, if you have a reefer malfunction and you have been maintaining your reefer the way you should have, they'll pretty much entertain it and make sure that there's no negligence and hopefully pay for the claim. And then another thing with reefer breakdown, make sure you actually keep the maintenance records. They're going to ask you for like 6 months worth. If you can't prove 6 months worth, then they do have a right to deny the claim. Like I said, some adjusters are just like lazy and they're not going to check you. They just kind of want to get it off their desk, so they'll pay it. Some adjusters are kind of just going to be pains and then want every single piece of documentation that you can pull up. But that's all I can think about for actual equipment types.
Yeah, that's good. So, but with reefer breakdown coverage, let's talk about that just a little bit more. When it comes down to it, I kind of see that sometimes seafood is kind of like separated out as its own little thing. Why is that? And, how does someone get full coverage, if that does exist?
Yes. So seafood is usually separated because it's like one of those commodities where you just have to be very specific in what you're hauling. Seafood and shellfish are not the same thing. In some cases with insurance, you have to list them individually. And then also the way that it is being transported is really important to insurance companies for some reason. So you have to list specifically fresh, frozen, or live. Some agents will kind of double check that for you and it'll just say seafood. But if you have like something on your policy where it just says live, you're not covered to be hauling frozen and fresh, and then kind of like a mix of the two. If you have like fresh, then you're not supposed to be hauling frozen or live. Why? I'm not really sure. It's, I guess, because it's like expensive, if I had to take a guess, and it's a perishable good. And then typically if the reefer were to just tick down just a tad or go up just a tad, then, I mean, you have a lost load of seafood or shellfish. Right. Chicken is another one that they're really iffy about. I guess meat in general, you have to list fresh, frozen, or live. Okay.
So so you basically can get all those things added, and it's nothing more than just having the coverage up front.
Yes, that's it. If you don't have it at all, it will cost to add. But sometimes if your agent checks with the underwriter, if it's fresh, frozen, alive, and you already have one listed, they usually can add the others for little to no charge. You just have to specify that you are hauling those things.
Okay, well, that's great to know. So yeah, that's that's basically what I wanted to talk about when it comes to the specific cargoes. And now, here's a section that, I'm very, very passionate about myself because I'm always there. The two times that I see this most is when, I'm onboarding one of my carriers to a broker, or when I, as the owner of Atlanta Dispatch, am saying, hey, carrier, if you're going to be one of my dispatch clients, I need you to add my company as a certificate holder on your policy. And, I feel as though I'm so protected that if anything happens while that carrier is, moving that freight, that I'm indemnified, but can you do me a favor? Can you, tell me what does to indemnify, what does that really mean? And then just go into a certificate holder and what that means.
Yes. So indemnify is the golden word in insurance. It means to make whole again. So in insurance, they call it betterment, want to make you better than what you were when you started. So if you have a 2004 Ford, we're not going to give you a 2006 because it's 2006. We're going to give you a 2004 and 2006 because that's what you had to start with. So that's the whole idea of indemnifying, just to kind of make you whole again. But to your other question, so a certificate of insurance is literally just a piece of paper showing the coverages in that time on that date. Listing someone as a certificate holder doesn't give them any coverage. It just lets you know that it was made for you. Mm-hmm. Also, each certificate is dated. The reason why it's dated is on the top left-hand corner is because it's only good for that day. That insurer could literally go into pending cancellation the next day, get an increase in risk the next day, just decide that he wants to cancel his policy the next day, and then the certificate you had the day before is no longer valid because it's a different day, and if you were to call on that day, that certificate would show different coverages. Same thing, they can add and remove things as they please. So just because they had cargo one day doesn't mean they have cargo the next day. So you always want to make sure you're always checking to update the certificate. If you want like real updates, what you can ask to be added as is an additional insured. Mm-hmm. An additional insured is another version of a certificate of insurance, but it's just an endorsement added to the policy, making you kind of I don't know the exact word, but like a viewer of sorts. So if that policy were to cancel or if there were to be a major change made on the policy, the insurance company would update you saying that, hey, this person doesn't cancel their policy for whatever reason, or they're in pending cancellation for whatever reason.
Okay. All right.
The certificate doesn't really do anything. We make $1,500 a day, I think. And they all change. They can remove the truck 5 minutes after you make the certificate and it'll be different 5 minutes later. Okay.
So like I said, man, with me doing it so frequently, and I guess the thought frame or the mindset I thought the broker had was that if there was anything that happened adverse that caused any issues with the load, a claim of any sorts once the driver took possession, that insurance, that broker would not be held liable for any of that type of stuff. And I thought it was, because it was specifically listed in the certificate holder, but that right there, that's a myth, would you say? Guaranteeing
yes.
protection?
A lot of times they can even make them themselves. At Marquee, we have 24-hour access where our clients can go in and make certificates themselves, and they can write anything they want in that box. They can't change the coverages, but the certificate holder box is whatever you put. I can put ABC Trucking. I can put anything, literally anything. It's just typable.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you just want to make sure you're additional insured if you want that extra added layer of information. Another thing, my famous phrase, you always want to pass risk. So that's passing the risk to someone else, saying hey, it's your responsibility to let me know if this person does or does not have insurance. But if you always want to check, and for whatever reason they don't want to add you as additional insured, because sometimes it can cost, you can always just make a quick call to the number listed on the certificate. And we get those all the time as well. And just say, hey, can you please confirm coverage? They're going to say $1 million in auto liability, $100,000 in cargo. They're pending cancellation for the 25th. And you may want to know that for whatever reason if your load exceeds the 25th. And that's pretty much it. You can also verify VIN numbers, because just because the person has a certificate, if the truck and driver, for whatever reason, isn't listed and it's a scheduled autos policy, you don't have any coverage.
Okay. All right. Look, I appreciate that. And, for the dispatchers of the world, the dispatchers who might hear this in the future, brokers require this stuff all the time, especially when you're getting onboarded. So sometimes they have amazing insurance agents like D who can just go ahead and, get that over to you immediately. Other times they are signed on directly through Progressive. And to get a COI with a certificate holder from Progressive, it can be a very easy step, or it can be daunting. Like you might have to call in and wait on the phone for 45 to an hour.
Yes.
Or you can make sure your carrier has an online, access, get those credentials and do exactly what Dee said, which is, you can enter that information yourself online and get it in 2 minutes. So that's just a little tip for the dispatchers of the world right there. So, but look, most of the time when it comes down to it, when I'm checking a carrier, I'm going first. I'm asking them for their MC number. If I'm saying, hey, you want to get down with Atlanta Dispatch? Okay, what's your MC number? I'm going to Safer and I'm checking them out. And with me checking them out on Safer, it's giving me that company snapshot. It's letting me see, any out of service dates. It's letting me see that they are a motor carrier. It's letting me see a whole bunch of things, how many drivers they got listed, all of those good things. But down at the bottom, there's some stuff about like safety stuff.
Yes.
How often are you actually interpreting the safety stuff down at the bottom? Is that something that you do on your normal day-to-day job or, back in the day? Okay.
So as an agent, we usually, if you call in and give an MC number, they're going straight to Safer. They want to know exactly who you are, what your business looks like, if you're even possibly insurable. If you have like just terrible safety scores, it might be super impossible for us to get you insurance because no one wants to take on a bad risk. Like no one wants, they kind of use that to see who you are, just to see the type of business that you're running, to see if you have a handle on your drivers, to see if, you're going over hours and you might fall asleep at the wheel or you're driving unsafely and you're going to cause a bunch of accidents. Like those things are really important. As an agent, we only go there one time really for the binding policy, period. But your insurance company is going there every 5 seconds. So they're checking everything. Sometimes we'll get insureds who will get letters, like I said earlier, where the insurance company knows the last 4 digits of a VIN number, the day that an accident happened, and that's all they know is because they checked Safer and Safer told them that truck had an accident. And then another thing that can happen is they can cancel your policy for increase in risk if your safety scores get too bad. You can get basically these audits where they kind of put you in a remediation period, and it's really annoying. They don't cancel you, but they make you meet with a person incessantly for 3 to 4 or 5 months to make sure you're back on track. They usually do that with like bigger companies. With the smaller ones, they do have a tendency to just cancel. But those safety scores are really important. They are super important among renewals. A lot of times people are like, oh, why are my price is so high at renewals? It's probably because your safety scores are bad.
What's a good safety score, not to interrupt?
Yeah, so it usually tells you the nation's average, and that changes. So you just want to be above the nation's average. Sometimes you'll go on there and they'll have like a red kind of thing at the bottom. That just means that there was one bad change. You always kind of want to find your status, and your status is either going to be red or green. Okay. So, at the end of the day, guys, I'm very, very happy that we were able to have Dee on the stage for tonight. You've done an amazing job, Dee. I just wanted to let you know that you have handled every single one of my questions, and you've given me so much game, so much knowledge, and I feel like the carrier that we were talking about, with them listening into this session, they definitely know how to move forward and protect themselves, when they're carrying different commodities going forward, knowing that it's not everything is general freight. Not everything is general freight, guys. So, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you. I don't really have too many more questions. And
if there was anything that you wanted to say as we close out the room, definitely feel free, but just know that you are definitely appreciated, man.
No problem. Thank you, but thank you for letting me speak, letting me on your platform. And the only thing I would have to say is we as agents are really grateful for your business, and we don't want bad things to happen to you guys. So I would just say, first off, read your policy at every point you can. Familiarize yourself with the policy. Some agents can't, read minds. They don't know what you intend on doing in the future. So always make sure that you're reading and that you're constantly contacting your agent and you're constantly calling, double checking things, whatever you need, reach out to them at any point. And just know that we got your back. So if you need anything, call us. Don't be scared to call us. We care more about you than the insurance company most of the time. So feel free to lean on us when you can.
All right. Well, look, D, you are always welcome to the stage. I appreciate you. Look, did you have time for if anyone had a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, look. I know that we've been on now for a little over an hour, so we're just going to respect Dee's time. So if you had a question, I'm just going to leave questions open for the next 30 seconds. Raise your hand and we can bring you to the stage. If not, it's all good. But I just wanted to say again, Valentine's Day is coming up. Just make sure you are out here appreciating your partner. If you have one, if not, self-love is some best love too. But look, we got a question. I'm going to bring this person up to the stage. All right.
Hello, how you doing? Thank you for bringing me up.
Oh, definitely.
I got into the conversation late, and you probably answered the question. But I wanted to know how much experience do you need before you can get insured at an affordable price?
At an affordable price. So they're mostly concerned with the actual age of the authority. That's going to be the main factor. But I would say at least 2 years for tractor trailers of CDL experience and just being over the age of 21. We can get you insurance if you have less than 2 years, and we can get you insurance if you have a brand new authority. But usually that's the peak when you start to see things come down a lot.
Quick follow-up question. What's the good age for, 2 years for the CDL, and what's the good age for the authority to get insured?
2 years is when you go over the sophomore new venture kind of category, and then a lot more markets open up to you. But usually your first 2 years, you're only going to get like a handful of people willing to kind of insure you. And then depending on like those other factors like location and driver history and credit and all that, they can kind of get it down a little bit more depending on where you are.
10-4. Thank you for answering my questions. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming up to the stage. All right, this last person snuck it in because I was about to close it down. Hey, what's up, Jonathan? Go ahead and introduce yourself, brother, and let us know your question.
Hey, what's going on, D and Jory? Hope I'm saying your name right. I just wanted to know. I sent D a message. I wasn't sure if she helped people out, like in New Jersey, for commercial insurance.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, we can. Let me see. You sent me a message.
Yeah, so for me is I'm looking for a truck right now. So if you could just give me a roundabout quote, maybe like this week or something, I'll give you like my information and maybe give me like a decent, just an estimate and see what I could do with that.
Do you know what type of truck you're looking for?
I have all the information for you.
Okay.
I just don't have like the DOT number and stuff because obviously I haven't bought the truck yet or like the VIN number, but I can give you a random VIN number from a truck that I'm looking at.
Yeah, so we can do that. As long as your MC is active and then you have all the like the other information like a garaging address and everything, we should be able to get you something.
Yeah, I don't have the MC either, but I do have the garaging and information and all the other stuff.
So without the MC, it is a possibility that your quote would change once you get the MC. So I don't know if you want to wait or we can try it now just to kind of see like where you may be. But it's up to you. but I can definitely reach out.
Yeah, I'll send you my number. Maybe you call me tomorrow or something. Because I'm in New Jersey and the prices out here is outrageous. I spoke to a few agents.
Are you around Newark?
I'm like 15 minutes away from there.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, but I have where I'm gonna be parking my truck is gonna be like more down south, like I'm not sure if you're from out here, but like Monroe, New Jersey, like more down south away from like New York and stuff like that.
I'm not from there, but I have heard of it. Let me give you a call first thing in the morning and we can talk more about it.
Sounds good. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
For sure. Thanks, Jonathan. And look, man, I dispatch hella trucks from that area. So once you get your equipment, if you're looking for opportunities, just holler at me.
Oh yeah, because my first year I know is gonna be the worst year. You gotta go through everything, ups and downs. So I know my first year I definitely want like a dispatcher and things like that. So I'm gonna follow you right now and then we could talk.
Okay, what you got, a semi, or you're gonna get a semi?
Yeah, I plan to get a semi. I plan to be like local, a little bit of regional if need to be and stuff like that. Try to be in the triangle of like New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York, like this whole little triangle over here. So
right,
if I could be within this area and try to be home, I got a little newborn at the crib. That'll help me out.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations to that. Best of luck.
Congrats, Jonathan.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
No doubt. And folks, I mean, now I'm plugging my stuff. If you are in that area, I'm telling you, holla at your boy. That area is hot for what I have going on. And if you are, I don't want to say a brand new carrier, but if you got 2 months, I can definitely get you some pretty solid situations for the semis. And if you're a box truck willing to go over the road, I can also get you some stuff out of that area, out of the Maryland area, really. But it's not too far. So if you guys need anything from me, just holla at me. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. But until next week, Dee, did you say what you wanted to say to close out, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Well, again, madam, I appreciate you. It was great meeting you at the Leading Ladies of Logistics conference and seeing you at the OTR Capital Christmas party. I look to work with Marquee Insurance Group a lot, especially now that you're the head of partnerships. So again, if there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. Okay.
I'll definitely be reaching out.
All right. Well, look, everybody, y'all have a blessed one. Thank you so much, Dee.
Bye, guys.